Steve Terry from St. John's Lutheran Church. What if you were born with a face that you were so ashamed of that you decided you had to cover it and cover your head before you could go outside of your house? What if you were so ashamed of the way that you looked that you hid away from people all of your life and was afraid that they would make fun of you, that they would ridicule you because of your outside appearance? Well, there is a book and later a movie that came out in 2018, and the title of the movie was Wonder. And the Wonder is about a boy entering into the 5th grade. He had been homeschooled most of his life, and so he had been able to avoid any kind of outside shaming or ridicule. For his name is Augie, and Augie had been born with a facial deformity, a medical condition that required almost 20 surgeries before he entered the 5th grade, just to allow him to see and to smell and to hear. But it left his face hideously deformed, to the point where he was ashamed to go out in public. Well, when he went to this 5th grade, he had been homeschooled all of his life, and this first day at public school, he wore a space helmet to cover his image so that no one would see what he looked like. Well, eventually he had to take the helmet off, and for the first few days and weeks, he did get made fun of. People looked at him and thought that he was truly ugly, so deformed that they made jokes about him. They said, if I looked like that, I would wear a mask all the time. They made him feel less. Well, eventually, 2 young children reached out to him and looked beyond his outside appearance and got to know him from the inside. And they discovered that he was really, really funny and very kind and really smart. So smart, in fact, that when the science fair came out, that this Augie and another boy ended up creating a science project that won the fair, and he got accolades from the teachers and eventually acceptance from the rest of the kids. Well, we live in a world that looks at the outside rather than the inside. We live in a world that tends to ridicule those who look differently, especially if they have a deformity or a disability. You know, in 1 Peter chapter 3, verses 3 and 4, it says this: your beauty should not come from the outside adornment, such as elaborate hairstyles and the wearing of gold jewelry or fine clothes. Rather, it should be that of the inner self, the unfading beauty of a gentle and quiet spirit, which is of great worth in God's sight. God is always telling us that it is not the outward appearance that is important. It is what is inside. It is our heart and our spirit. That we are saved by grace through faith has nothing to do with what we look like. It's how we embrace God's love and how we choose to believe in Jesus Christ's death and resurrection. You know, we are created in God's image, male and female in God's image, but that image has nothing to do with the outside. It has everything to do with the spirit, with the heart. In fact, the most important Bible verse of all time comes out of Deuteronomy, and it is a verse for parents. This verse is important for all parents because it talks about how we are to raise our children. We are to raise our children in the faith, and it says this. It says in verse 7, it says, impress them on your children. Talk about them when you sit at home and when you walk along the road, when you lie down and when you get up. In Deuteronomy chapter 6, verse 7, it talks about our role as parents is to teach our children these important tenets. What are we to teach our children? Well, we are to teach them the Shema. This is, hear, O Israel, the Lord your God is one. And you ought to love the Lord your God with all of your heart and your mind and your soul and your strength. We are to teach our children that we are to love God alone with our whole body and our whole spirit and our whole self. And there is no room then, when we love God, to make fun of others. The reason why I'm giving this sermon today is that yesterday I came across a TikTok and then an Instagram and then on YouTube, parents who are doing this thing called the New Teacher Challenge, where they take a photo off the internet of someone who in their estimation is hideous and ugly, and they tell their young children that their new teacher has called. And then they gather the children to look on the photo of the telephone, and what they see is someone who has a deformity, someone who has a physical disability. And then their kids shriek away in horror and sometimes cry, and the parents in the background laugh as they have ridiculed another individual's worth. They've diminished their worth, and they've set their kids up to do the same. We are in the Shema told that we are to teach our children that God alone is one, and we are to love God. Jesus then adds to that we are to love others as ourself. There is no room for ridicule and hatred. There is no room for this kind of behavior. We as parents are called to impress on our children God's love and the love of others, not hate and ridicule and shaming others for their outside appearance. Remember always that it is the spirit and the heart that makes us beautiful. Our outside appearance will fade and wither away, but our inside self will be renewed day by day. May you be blessed today, and may you impress on those around you that all people are beautiful, that we are to get to know someone from the inside and never judge them on the outside. Be blessed and bless others today.